I used to think I'd heard every sound the wilderness could conjure, every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, every animal call from the smallest shrew to the largest grizzly. As a park ranger in the sprawling, ancient expanse of Blackwood National Forest, it was my job to know these sounds, to interpret them, to understand the language of the wild. But what I heard last night wasn't an animal, and it spoke a language I pray I never hear again. The forest has always been a second home to me. My name's Ethan, and I've spent the better part of a decade patrolling these trails, maintaining the campsites, and guiding lost hikers out of situations they never should have gotten themselves into. It's a quiet life, mostly. Solitary, but fulfilling. The trees are old here, some of them ancient, their branches gnarled and thick with a history that predates man. There are parts of Blackwood that feel different, older, places where the air hangs heavy and the silence isn't just an absence of sound, but a presence in itself. Whisperwind Canyon is one such place. It's a deep, jagged scar in the earth, carved by millennia of water and wind. The park regulations are explicit. No entry after dark. Even in daylight, it's treacherous. Steep, loose rock, sudden drops, and a maze of narrow passages. We tell the tourists it's for their safety, which is true enough. But there's an unwritten rule among the rangers, a hushed understanding passed down from one generation to the next. Whisperwind Canyon holds something else, something that doesn't like to be disturbed. My partner, Liam, is as seasoned as they come. He's been a ranger longer than I've been alive. His face a roadmap of sun and wind, his eyes sharp and knowing. We'd been out for a 3-day patrol, checking on the westernmost campsites, making sure no one was doing anything stupid. The first 2 days were uneventful, typical Blackwood beauty. We'd set up camp on a small ridge overlooking the distant, hazy outline of Whisperwind Canyon, the last rays of sun painting the sky in fiery oranges and purples. The air was still, the kind of stillness that precedes a storm, or perhaps something far worse. The usual evening chorus of crickets and cicadas was muted, almost hesitant. Even the rustle of the leaves seemed to hold its breath. Liam, who usually hummed some old country tune while he set up his tent, was quiet. I noticed him glancing towards the canyon more often than usual. "Something off tonight, Ethan," he mumbled, wiping sweat from his brow. "Feels heavy." I nodded, feeling it too. It was that peculiar sensation of being watched, the hairs on the back of your neck tingling despite no discernible threat. I'd experienced it before, usually when a large predator was nearby, but this felt different, more deliberate, more aware. We got the fire going, the crackle and pop a welcome comfort against the encroaching darkness. The stars began to pepper the inky sky, impossibly bright out here, far from any light pollution. We talked about the usual ranger stuff, a new trail proposal, the upcoming hunting season, the bizarre story of a tourist who swore a bear had stolen his entire cooler of craft beer. It was an attempt at normalcy, but the underlying tension was palpable. Every shadow seemed to stretch a little longer. Every distant hoot of an owl seemed to carry an unnerving echo. Around midnight, Liam excused himself to relieve himself, heading a short distance into the tree line. I was stoking the fire, lost in the mesmerizing dance of the flames, when I heard it. "Ethan, help!" It was Liam's voice, clear as day, urgent, distressed. It sounded like it was coming from deep within the canyon, a desperate plea carried on a sudden gust of wind. My heart hammered against my ribs. I shot to my feet, grabbing the axe we kept by the fire. "Liam," I yelled, my voice thick with alarm. "Liam, where are you?" Then a rustle of leaves behind me. I spun around, axe raised, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. There stood Liam, his face pale, his eyes wide with a terror that mirrored my own. He had just emerged from the trees, his fly still undone. He hadn't even had time to squat. "What in God's name was that?" he whispered, his voice hoarse, completely devoid of the urgency I had just heard. "Did you hear that?" My blood ran cold. He was standing right there, right next to me. That was you," I stammered, lowering the axe slowly. "It sounded exactly like you, calling for help from the canyon." Liam shook his head, a single bead of sweat tracing a path down his temple despite the cool night air. "No, Ethan, that wasn't me. I heard it too. It sounded like me, but I was right there." He gestured vaguely towards the trees. "Doing my business." It was coming from the canyon, a perfect mimicry. We stood there side by side under the vast, indifferent sky, the only sound the frantic pounding of our own hearts. The fire seemed to shrink, its warmth suddenly inadequate against the chilling realization that had just settled over us. We had both heard it, the same voice, the same desperate plea, but only one of us was real. "It's trying to lure us," Liam finally said, his voice barely a whisper. He didn't need to elaborate. The unwritten rule, the hushed understanding, it all clicked into place. This wasn't some lost hiker. This was something else, something that knew our voices, something that wanted us in that canyon. We spent the rest of the night huddled by the fire, our rifles across our laps, taking turns to keep watch. Every shadow danced with menace. Every distant sound was scrutinized, analyzed, dismissed, only to be reevaluated moments later. The mimicry didn't repeat itself, but the silence that followed was far worse. It was a watchful, expectant silence, as if whatever had called to us was now simply waiting, listening to our strained breathing, our frantic thoughts. The sun finally crept over the horizon, painting the world in hues of soft gray and then gold. The forest, bathed in morning light, seemed to shed its nocturnal menace, transforming back into the familiar, comforting expanse I knew. But the feeling of dread didn't lift. It clung to us like the dew on the leaves, a cold, persistent reminder of the night's terror. We broke camp quickly, forgoing our usual leisurely morning coffee. The urge to get out of there, to put as much distance as possible between us and Whisperwind Canyon, was overwhelming. As we packed the last of our gear, Liam stopped, his head cocked to one side. "Did you hear that?" he asked, his voice low. I strained my ears. Nothing. Only the chirping of early birds. "What?" I asked. Just a whisper, like my name, carried on the wind. He looked at me, his eyes betraying a profound weariness. Probably just my imagination, too much coffee and not enough sleep. But I knew it wasn't, and I knew he knew it wasn't. We hiked out in silence, the miles blurring into a desperate escape. Every snap of a twig behind us made us flinch. Every sudden rustle in the undergrowth sent a jolt of adrenaline through our veins. We didn't talk about it, not really. What was there to say? How do you explain a perfect mimicry of your own voice, heard by two people when one of them is standing right beside you? It defies logic. It shatters the very fabric of reality you rely on to navigate the world. Back at the ranger station, the familiar smell of stale coffee and old paper was a welcome anchor. We filed our patrol report, omitting the chilling encounter. Who would believe us? They'd write it off as fatigue, as a trick of the mind in the isolation of the wilderness. But Liam and I shared a look that spoke volumes. The unspoken understanding of what we had experienced, a bond forged in shared terror. The next few weeks were a blur. I found myself jumpy, constantly checking over my shoulder. Sleep offered no respite. The mimicry haunted my dreams, twisting into grotesque parodies of my own voice, calling for help from an unseen abyss. I started taking my rifle with me everywhere, even just to check the mail. Liam was the same. He'd lost weight, and the lines around his eyes seemed deeper, etched with a new kind of worry. We tried to rationalize it, of course. A rare bird, an echo, some bizarre acoustic phenomenon, but the perfect fidelity, the urgency, the fact that we both heard it simultaneously while Liam was physically present, it defied all rational explanation. This wasn't an animal. It was something intelligent, something malevolent, something that wanted us. One evening, while I was alone at the ranger station, sorting through some old maps, I decided to do some research. I typed Blackwood National Forest strange sounds into the search bar. The internet, that vast repository of human knowledge and human delusion, offered a familiar mix of geological theories, crackpot conspiracies, and local legends. Then I found it. A small, obscure forum dedicated to cryptid encounters in North America. There was a thread buried deep titled Whisperwind Canyon, the Mimic. I clicked on it, my heart beginning to pound with a familiar dread. The posts were old, some dating back decades. They spoke of a creature, a skinwalker or a mimic, that inhabited the deeper, unexplored parts of the forest, particularly around the canyon. It wasn't a physical beast, not in the traditional sense. It was something that preyed on human emotion, on fear, on the primal instinct to help. It lured its victims by perfectly imitating the voices of their loved ones, their friends, and their partners. It called from the darkest, most dangerous places, knowing that the human heart, burdened by empathy, would rush in. One post, in particular, chilled me to the bone. It was from a user claiming to be a former ranger from Blackwood, posting under a pseudonym. He described an incident from the 1970s, almost identical to ours. He and his partner, David, had heard David's voice calling for help from the canyon, while David was standing right next to him. They hadn't entered, they had survived. But another ranger, a young recruit who had been stationed at a distant outpost, had heard it too. He had gone in alone, armed only with a pistol and a flashlight, convinced his friend was in trouble. He was never seen again. His last radio transmission had been a garbled scream, followed by a sound that the surviving ranger described as a distorted, wet chuckle. The post ended with a chilling warning. It doesn't just mimic voices. It learns. It learns your fears, It learns your weaknesses, and it never truly forgets a voice once it's heard it. I closed the laptop, my hands trembling. This wasn't some urban legend spread around a campfire. This was a pattern, a terrifying, inexplicable pattern. The true scary stories I used to dismiss as campfire tales were suddenly disturbingly real. Liam and I became even more withdrawn. We avoided patrols near Whisperwind Canyon, making excuses to our supervisor. He noticed, of course, but he was a pragmatic man. As long as the work got done, he didn't pry too deeply into the unspoken anxieties of his rangers. He'd been around long enough to know that some things in the forest were best left unexamined, but the forest wasn't done with us. A few weeks after the canyon incident, we were on a routine patrol along the eastern boundary, miles away from Whisperwind. The day was bright, the air crisp. We were checking on a series of old bear traps, ensuring they hadn't been tampered with. Everything felt normal, almost peaceful. Then I heard it. Faint at first, carried on the breeze. "Ethan, where are you?" It was my mother's voice, software worried, just like she'd call out to me when I was a kid, playing too far from the house. I froze. Liam stopped beside me, his hand going to the rifle slung across his back. He'd heard it too. That's not possible," I whispered, my voice cracking. My mother lived 3 states away. She hadn't visited Blackwood in years. "It knows," Liam breathed, his eyes wide with dawning horror. "It heard us talking about our families. It knows." The voice came again, closer this time. "Ethan, darling, are you hurt?" It was so perfect, so utterly convincing it tore at my heart. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to answer, to run towards the sound, to help my mother. But the rational part of my brain, the part that had witnessed the canyon incident, screamed louder. "Don't answer," Liam hissed, pulling me back into the cover of some dense brush. "Don't move. Don't make a sound." We crouched there, motionless, listening to the impossible, my mother's voice pleading, cajoling, growing more desperate. It moved around us, circling, seemingly trying to pinpoint our location. It wasn't just repeating words, it was adapting, asking questions, using phrases my mother used. "Ethan, honey, I'm worried about you. Are you alone out there?" The psychological horror of it was unbearable. It felt like a violation, an invasion of my most private thoughts and memories. This thing wasn't just mimicking sounds, it was mimicking emotion. It was trying to weaponize my love and concern against me. After what felt like an eternity, the voice faded. The forest returned to its usual sounds, but they felt hollow now, a thin veil over an unseen terror. We stayed hidden for another hour, not daring to move, until the sun began to dip below the tree line. We didn't go back to the ranger station that night. We drove straight out of the forest, all the way to the nearest motel in the next town over. We didn't speak a word about what had happened. We just sat in numb silence, staring at the flickering motel TV, the fluorescent lights a stark contrast to the oppressive darkness of Blackwood. The next morning, we put in our notice. Both of us. The supervisor didn't ask questions. He just looked at us with a knowing, weary expression, as if he'd seen this before. Perhaps he had. Perhaps Blackwood National Forest had claimed more than just missing hikers over the years. I haven't set foot in Blackwood since. Liam and I keep in touch, but our conversations are short, punctuated by long silences. We both know what we heard, what we experienced. It's an unspoken trauma that binds us, a shared secret too terrifying to articulate. Sometimes, late at night, when the wind howls around my small cabin far from any forest, I swear I hear it, a faint whisper just at the edge of hearing. My name, or sometimes Liam's voice, distorted by distance calling out for help. And I know with a chilling certainty that it's still out there, in Blackwood, waiting, learning. Because the thing about a mimic, a true mimic, is that it doesn't just repeat what it hears. It learns, it adapts, and it never truly forgets. It heard our voices, it heard our fears. And I can't shake the feeling that it's still listening, perfecting its craft, waiting for the day it can lure us back into its ancient, shadowed embrace, the call of the mimic. A sound that will forever haunt my nightmares, a chilling reminder that some things in this world are not meant to be understood, only feared, and that some stories, no matter how unbelievable, are terrifyingly true.
Thank you so much for sticking with me to the end. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you liked this video, please hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.